Hey, welcome to Abundant Source. In this video, I want to talk about unity and the idea of something basically only being necessary until it's not, and that there are no necessities in life. There are definitely helpful, beneficial tools and different things that help our growth, but only to the point that we realize that we're everything and that everything is just a part of us. And when we use a tool or a technique or anything like that, we're really just kind of expressing ourselves with another expression of ourselves to sort of help benefit us and get us to that unity consciousness. But then once we're actually there, there's not really any need for anything. And so what comes to mind when I think about this are things like psychoactive compounds, psychedelic drugs, like DMT, ayahuasca, even marijuana can be beneficial for the, opening up the heart and the mind for some people, but not something that you necessarily want to rely on or think that is the ultimate source of divine consciousness. And other than that, things like crystals, things like incense, things like prayer, pretty much anything can be used to help elevate you in the moment to more of a unified consciousness. And that feels really good, and it's really nice to be able to have tools like this, like crystals, and that help to bring in a certain energy and to stabilize a certain energy when we're not feeling like we're in that unified state. Because a lot of us have a lot of fear, and we're manifesting a lot of those fears into our lives, and we're not really completely sure how to deal with this. Maybe we don't have the tools and techniques to know exactly how to release some of this stuff. And so it's kind of locked away in our subconscious and even consciously. And so we do feel down a lot. And so it's nice to have things that can help pick us up, put us in a nicer vibration, and just sort of improve our mood for the moment. And one thing that I would love to express is just that in those times, it can be very beneficial to have these tools, but at the same time, if we're talking about the highest or at least very much higher spiritual wisdom, then it can actually be somewhat of a, not necessarily a detriment, but definitely like a slowing of your personal growth, because basically it's all about getting over your fears and learning how to not react to certain fears and not react to certain situations. You want to basically always be in a state of acting and expressing, but never reacting, and never letting something take you over and letting something get to you. And the greatest way that I've found to help overcome these fears and these reactions is actually not to go to things like, say, prayer or chanting or crystals or marijuana or psychoactive, but is actually just to sit in the fear and in the crap that's coming up and sit with it and learn how to not react to it, learn how to observe it, learn how to basically be okay in any situation. Because when you get into a situation that's uncomfortable, your first want and desire is to be out of that uncomfortable situation. So you turn to things that are outside of yourself, and the way that we see it outside of ourselves, in order to basically divert our attention from the discomfort. But actually the most healing is going to be when you observe the discomfort, and when you sit in the discomfort, and when you learn to be okay with the discomfort without anything other than just your own being, and just your own awareness and just sitting with yourself, and that it's actually more rapid growth for you to not use these tools in order to feel a different state of consciousness. Because what that typically does is, okay, I can go and grab a bunch of crystals and I can feel very good, and they put me at a certain vibration, but it's not like an incredibly stable vibration. It's not a vibration that you can maintain all the time without these tools. And so it's great when you can have that, and when things are going positive, then it's going really positive and you feel on top of the world. But then all of a sudden, somebody that you don't think very highly of says something snarky to you, and now like your mood just totally drops and you've reacted, and basically trying to get yourself at a higher vibration using these tools doesn't necessarily tend to get you to look at what is the deepest, darkest things about your being that you're trying to avoid. It doesn't really allow you to go very deep inside yourself. Like when you are very uncomfortable and when you're in, like, say, the dark night of the soul type situations, and you're just depressed and all of that, those are the times when you learn to go very deep in yourself and find out what is like deeply rooted emotional attachments within yourself. And that's when you can actually root them out. And when you divert your attention with other substances or tools, then you're kind of avoiding looking at that. And so what that does is it puts you at a temporary high, but then easily you can drop out of that and become reactional because you haven't looked at the things that make you react. And it's very, fearful. It's very scary to go that deep, and to look at these things. But when you do, that's when you start getting to a point where your reactions start going away, and you start understanding the deepest parts of yourself, and you start understanding your fears and why they happen and why they come up. And then that's when you basically get to this point where you stop reacting so much and you just are in this very peaceful state constantly, or at least more constantly than before. And so the idea that I want to talk about here is the idea of, a lot of people are in this mindset, they're on their journey, and they believe that certain tools are necessary in order to sort of be like enlightened or incredibly aware. And I believe that these tools can be helpful and beneficial, but that they're only necessary until they're not necessary anymore, and there's nothing that is actually necessary. And once you get to a certain point, you just are in like this very high Christ consciousness where you're connected with everything, and there's nothing that you could possibly need, and nothing that's going to make you react, and nothing that you're attached to. And you can be in this state of peacefulness and bliss without the use of any tools or anything like that. And that is personally the state that I want to be in. I don't want to have to use anything outside of myself in order for my own happiness. I don't want to have to go to different, plant medicines or different any sort of modalities, techniques. It's like I don't want to spend my whole life having to, constantly do Reiki on myself and like align my auras 24/7, and to be in a try to maintain a certain level of awareness all the time. What I really want is to reach the state where basically all the fears and doubts have left me, and then it's automatic. You're automatically just sitting in the state of bliss and peace, and you don't even have to try and do anything. You don't need anything outside of yourself. And I'm certainly not condemning any of these tools or modalities, just trying to point out that they're not the highest truth. They're not the truth of unity and source and godliness. They are part of our existence, and they're a wonderful mechanism here in our reality that can help as stepping stones to a higher awareness. But I think it's beneficial to keep in mind that they are just stepping stones and that you will not necessarily want to use them forever, or maybe you will, and that's just fine. I feel like there's so many different levels of awareness in each individual that it does feel necessary right now for a lot of people to be using these modalities, these tools, and to show other people in maybe lower vibrational consciousness how to use them as well, because I know plenty of people who are just like rock solid, emotionally detached, and very rigid, and I'm like, man, you would benefit so much from like some mushrooms or from some ayahuasca. Like, I hope that you do some ayahuasca and open yourself up to new realities, or something like that. And that is the truth, and that's the case for a lot of people. They're so closed off and so much attached to their identity here on earth that these things would really help to open up their hearts and to open up their minds to this reality of unity, the truth. So I think that it's super beneficial, and that we do need people at this time, showing the way and using these techniques. And I use them too. It's not as though I'm not using techniques to help people with their emotions and with their energy. And, every once in a while I have crystals and things like that I use as well. But I find that I don't feel like I need them as much, and like I'm using them less and less. And that I'm really just honing in on my own intuitiveness without any other thing to be necessary for that. So that's my little message for you for today. Hope you enjoyed it. I thank you so much for watching, and I will talk with you in the next video.